Yeah, that's exactly right. So the founders of CryptoKitties, which is one of the most popular games, one of the most
popular
games on Ethereum. Yeah,
so
crashed
just
the
for
network.
the audience, like CryptoKitties, what is it?
CryptoKitties, it's a
Game. It sounds so perverse, right? Because you're like,
What's
oh wow,
wrong
like
with CryptoKitties?
you're like, CryptoKitties in general. Just because you're like, all right, so my company is founded off of NFTs, and we focus on building a community around that. This is what I'm saying, like for you. And then you're like, pretty much like Flowverse of Flow as a blockchain and technology that's established there was founded because of
cats on it. Yeah. Well, actually, if you look back to the
cats.
early days of the internet, I think it was all cats as well. So it's just some sort of like weird internet phenomena where people love cats.
I guess like cats are intriguing. They're cute. People like to like, I guess, exchange images and things like that. Welcome back to the Student Founder Podcast, a platform that we have created for experts in business, student entrepreneurs, and investors to come on and talk about their experiences in the startup realm. I'm your host, Oliver Kukanik, PhD student by day, student founder by night. This episode is brought to you by Rofi Labs, a software development company that I myself, among 4 other brilliant minds in the University of Melbourne area, have come together to create economical software solutions in both application development and dedicated resources for companies looking to expand their platforms. If this is something you'd be interested in learning more about, feel free to look at our website at www.rofilabs.com.au or hit me up directly on LinkedIn at Oliver Kukanik, link in the description. Now, today we have a very special guest. His name is James Petchey. He is the co-founder and CEO of Flowverse, correct? Yeah, CEO and co-founder of Flowverse, an aggregator for the blockchain, Flow blockchain NFT community, right? So it's a community that brings people on the Flow blockchain network together to share their NFT projects. Their company has not generated a revenue, but they've developed a community of approximately 100,000 people so far. And so got James sitting across from me right now. How's it going, James?
Yeah, going well. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming in. Today was definitely it was a very cold day. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, I think it hit like 1 degree.
1 degree here in Melbourne. So I guess I was telling you on the way up from the ground floor that I was going to go for a run this morning, but then I got outside and I clapped out. I was like, no, I can't do this. It's too cold. My hands were falling off. So yeah.
It's very weird because like if you look at the weather in Europe at the moment, London, it's like 40 degrees. Yeah. And then here it's 1 degree.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's profound. Yeah. Anyway, so thanks for coming on the podcast today. Like I said, this is a platform for you yourself as a founder, previous student, and now co-founder of Flowverse to come on and talk about your experiences, both good and bad, in the startup, realm. So I think the first section of the podcast will just talk briefly about like being a student founder, right? Because you yourself have gone through the ropes of going through university, and we can just talk a little bit about that dynamic of how you were able to change and adapt your mindset or learn through the process of going to university and actually come down and be like, okay, I want to start a company. I want to take advantage of the NFT opportunity that's arising right now. Then maybe we can talk a little bit about NFTs, a little bit about the blockchain, like, and what it is for those audiences out there who aren't well versed. So I guess before we get into it, then let's hear a little bit about your story, James. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you start off?
Where did I start? Yeah. Well, I started in England, actually. I was born in England.
Great. What part of England?
Essex.
So So cold as hell.
Cold as hell. I started out in Essex. You wouldn't be able to tell from the accent.
Sure.
I
mean, it's very westernized these days, right?
But then we came out to Australia when I was 6. Yeah. Grew up in Adelaide. Yeah. Came to Melbourne for university.
Nice.
Studied at University of Melbourne as you are at the moment.
That's good. Yeah. So I noticed like on your LinkedIn, for example, that you have a phenomenal ATAR. Now I don't like to talk about ATARs because it was so long ago, but coming from England itself, like, how did you score so well?
How did I score so well? That was a while ago now. I think, I don't know. Yeah, just a lot of hard work. Yeah. Probably in year 12.
Were you always like that?
Not always. So
do you think there was a period of time, like maybe, you were a bit of a loose unit, like year 10, 11, and then eventually you're like, okay, I got to switch on, and then realize the potential you had in year 12? Or
I think I didn't really care much for school probably up until year 8 or year 9. And then around then, I'm not sure what it was, but I just started like doing a bit better. I think I was in like one of the lower math classes in year 7 and then like the top one in year 9 or something. So it's like a gradual kind of transition.
Interesting. So what was your favorite, like in high school, I guess, like what was your favorite subject?
Favorite subject? I reckon biology.
Yeah.
So
when that hits home because like PhD like in biology myself. So I can definitely relate there. But in terms of, I guess, interests, like you said, you weren't necessarily the greatest at mathematics when you were a bit younger. Did that improve over time?
Yeah, definitely. I think started not so good at things, and I'm not sure what it was. Like I have no idea what I can like point it to, but got better over time. For year 12.
Maybe just the maturity of your brain adapting when you hit those latter years of high school. The reason I ask is because there's a correlation between, well, first of all, like creativity and mathematics, right? You yourself being someone who's now a co-founder of a company, I think there's a lot of correlation there with people who are good at mathematics and their problem logic and problem solving skills. And then that correlation to running a successful startup because of the, I guess, inevitable interactions that you'll have and obstacles that you need to overcome. You know what I mean? So that's pretty interesting. So you eventually did quite well in high school. And what did you study in university?
So I started doing a Bachelor of Science. And the first 4 subjects I undertook were pretty random. So I did computer science, physics, biology, and finance. And I think after doing physics, which I quite enjoyed at high school for a few weeks, I started to realize that probably wasn't the path I wanted to go down. Likewise with biology. Even though it was something I was super passionate about at high school. And I really loved finance. And so that made me move into a Bachelor of Commerce actually after the first semester.
So you didn't ever complete the Bachelor's of Science?
No, I didn't complete the Bachelor of Science.
You turned to the dark side. You were like, I'm going to drop it all. I'm going straight to, finance sector. More money.
I think it was more like I always wanted to do my own business. And when I was doing a Bachelor of Science, I wasn't particularly enjoying any one subject enough to fully commit to Bachelor of Science. So I enjoyed finance a bit. My dad runs his own company, so I think that's sort of where it all came from. And then I was sort of peer pressured a bit into like doing like medicine by some of my friends. I was going to go down that path.
I mean it's the typical pathway of a science. Right. So most of us go into science or biomed with the intention that we might want to become doctors. But then at the same time, there's a lot of, I guess, incorrect reasons to go down that path. One of the reasons I decided, because I myself wanted to go down that pathway of becoming a clinician, right? Now, I'm doing my PhD in cancer research right now, but in order for me to realize, that was something that I wanted to pursue, I really had to, define what is different between the two fields. So what is the difference between a clinical researcher and someone who goes into traditional, clinical medicine, right? And something that I noticed and was able to get through perspectives of various conversations with people was simply that medical school, although it has mass impact on society, it itself is a very linear career, right? So you go to school, you learn the ropes, you learn the books, you follow around the clinicians, and you become like the clinician, right? Whereas the researcher itself is the creative side of the medical field, right? Because they're the people who are actually doing the fundamental base level discovery research. And that in itself has macro scale. So if you want to intend on helping society, for example, doing research does have the same impact, if not more, reach than medical clinicians themselves, right? But in itself is a more creative pathway because you're flashing. An analogy I like to use, like medical school, you're walking across a lit up room, right? Like you can see exactly where you're going. Whereas like medical research, on the other hand, you're walking around a dark room with a flashlight. You don't know where you are, but you're going to discover where you're going to go. Right?
That's a very interesting point.
Having said that, like it's interesting that you've gone from the science to the finance, right?
Yes.
Because that in itself is your inspiration and ambition of, your interests in business in itself, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to get back to it, I guess so originally it was sort of like quite interested in going down the medical pathway, purely because like my friends were all going down that path.
Of course, yeah.
But I started to realize more and more that I'm not one for like performing surgery, and I think if I was going to kind of study medicine, I would have ended up wanting to own like a bunch of GP practices, and like just running and kind of managing that. And so it's just like, why bother doing that when I may as well just do commerce and learn a bit more about how to run that stuff.
And I feel like a lot of people traditionally, like, they get into medicine and then whether they've realized beforehand or after the fact, end up coming back out of medical field into something a bit more creative and loose where they can start an enterprise, right? So it is, I wouldn't say it's uncommon for someone who likes science to then, go into something like finance because of the incentive that there is financially, but also the incentive that there is creatively, right? Yeah. So good on you for like, I guess putting aside the, because, like vocalizing that you want to become a doctor to your family and your friends, and everyone's like, okay, James is going to be a doctor now, and that's how we see him and view him, and then being like, nah, actually, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to do something different, to like against the grain, go into finance, right? And then people will be like, they might judge you or things like that. But if you have the fortitude, then, good on you for like, not worrying about what other people think and just getting on with it. And then, it looks like you're doing well for yourself. So that's great.
I think it's, it's definitely something that I've found to kind of work over time is just to trust your gut feel with things, like more than anything. And so I don't think there's ever been a time where I've regretted going with my gut feel on a long-term decision. And sometimes when I haven't gone with my gut feel, it's been more sort of like, I'll do something for a while. I'll like muck around and then I'll end up going with my gut feel anyway. So I think that's like a pretty important thing.
That's interesting. Like the whole idea and phenomenon around the gut feeling, it's like, it's almost just cortisol in your body. Like it's just a stress hormone, right? So you just get like intense stress, you get sweaty and you're like, oh, is this the right move? Like, and it's almost like when you feel, it's that butterfly feeling, right? The butterfly effect in your stomach where it's like, before you do a presentation or maybe even before this podcast, for example, you get a little bit of jitters and it's like, it's a stress hormone is being released for a reason, for whatever reason, evolutionarily to avoid danger. But in today's society where there's not a lot of danger around, that feeling, it means that there's potential to grow, So I feel the same way. Like when you have that feeling and anxiety, you're not sure which way to go. That's your gut feeling telling you, okay, you need to make this step, even if you don't necessarily, even if it's the harder thing to do, what I mean? And there's often a lot more to learn, a lot more progress and satisfaction that comes out of that. And just meaning in life in general, you find purpose by doing things that other people are not necessarily comfortable to do. So it's really good, man. All right. So you went from science and now you're in finance, right? Or you were in finance. So you've graduated now from university, correct?
Yes, yeah.
So during your university like pathway, you obviously would have done a breadth of different units and subjects to discover what it is that you were interested in specifically in the industry. What was it in the industry, like, while studying that kind of drove you towards, I want to start my own company. I want to go down this pathway. Did you have prior experiences in things before the company that you're now co-founding?
Oh, right. At university. Nothing particularly at university, but I think I always did want to do my own business from like quite a young age. So I don't think there was anything like particularly at university that made me want to go down this path more. I think uni was great. I just studied like a breadth of different subjects. The uni breadth program's pretty good. Did some blood subjects, some like very interesting ones.
You got to increase the GPA, right?
I found foundations of computing really quite good.
That's a good unit. I feel like everyone should have a base level, understanding of code just in general. You know what I mean? I feel like, especially with tech just booming these days, having that understanding of what tech is capable of, and then also being able to, you know, develop and create ideas from your basic understanding, and then potentially go on and start something that could be innovative for society.
Yeah,
it just has a lot of utility.
Actually, that's probably a good point. Like, I think the reason why I would have done Foundations of Computing to begin with was because I'd seen like The Social Network, all those like founder movies that you see growing up. So I was inspired by that to do Foundations of Computing.
Absolutely.
And so Foundations of Comp was a really good one. Economics, like first year economics, just getting a very simple understanding of supply and demand, this equilibrium. I thought that was really good. And likewise with kind of first and second year finance, like understanding how to value companies, I think has really helped, particularly in crypto, to try and wrap your head around like what a fundamental value is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's interesting. I guess we can talk a little bit about crypto now. It just seems like the natural progression. But man, a lot of people our age, they're just like getting into investing and things. I feel like traditionally back in the day, you'd only get the old boomers investing. I don't mean that in a bad way, but like typically older people would invest in, you know, superannuation funds and things like that. But now, particularly in the crypto space, the average investor is our age, you know, 20 to 25, even, you know, young 30s. So yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit about blockchain, a little bit about what it is for those in the audience who don't really have a good understanding about it.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about NFTs because that's really your bread and butter.
The bread and butter, so, we're mainly focused on NFTs, though we do sort of cover like all blockchain apps.
Of course.
DAOs.
So blockchain. Yep. Do you have a little bit of a description, just basically like, you know, how it works, what's the purpose, what's it used for?
A simple description of blockchain.
Simple description.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, so it doesn't have to be technical. It's not supposed to be.
So in its simplest form, a blockchain is basically a database. So like any other regular database, but it's publicly accessible at all points in time.
Yeah.
And it's immutable, which means it can't be changed.
There you go. Yeah.
So that's sort of like, and it's distributed as well, decentralized. So no one central entity has control over the database.
So no government. I mean, these days they're creating a lot of regulation around it, right? So
exactly.
You have a lot of
and I think that's like a natural progression. Like over time, all these new technologies do get regulated in some way, and even actually not having regulatory certainty can actually hold the industry back.
Absolutely. I think something like it's an interesting like conversation because when people say blockchain, the first thing they think of is Bitcoin. Right? Yeah. But Bitcoin is just one of the utilities of blockchain in itself. Blockchain is the tech, right? So blockchain itself backs cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, for example, correct?
Yeah, for sure. So cryptocurrencies and NFTs are all built on top of a blockchain. So basically so cryptocurrency then, to give a simple definition to that, is basically just a currency, although many of them behave like commodities. Where all the transactions of that currency and all the accounts are recorded on a blockchain.
Sure.
And then to go one step further now into NFTs, an NFT is basically an asset where all the transactions are recorded on blockchain.
Sure.
So it could be like like if you wanted to record a house ownership on a blockchain, you'd use an NFT. If you wanted to do a currency, it would be a cryptocurrency.
Sure. That's interesting. So in terms of like your company Flowverse, like tell me a little bit about that and like, you know, I guess what was the natural progression coming out of your university degree, potentially getting some type of internship or something in the workplace, and then saying, okay, well, there's this unique opportunity that's arising over the last 3 years or so, and you've obviously noticed that, and then with the NFT space absolutely booming in the last year, I think it was like, I can't remember the exact percentage, but it's in the hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands.
Yeah, I think the industry growth rate was 21,000%
21,000%
in 2021.
Yeah,
and that's the transaction volume.
Yeah, that's insane. That's just like ludicrous. But yeah, I guess like how did you utilize your expertise and everything that you kind of learned, and then went, okay, like I'm going to try and take advantage of this opportunity?
Yeah, so I think to wind back a bit, I met my co-founder on the first day of Melbourne Uni, actually. Great. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. So we've known each other for like 6 or 7 years now. That's good. And I met him at a kind of student accommodation provider, and then fast forwarding to the end of uni, we actually worked at the same company together called Quantium in data analytics.
Yeah.
So I had a stint in data analytics between university and between Flowverse. And like what led us to start Flowverse in the first place? I can get into a bit about that. So I guess starting out at Quantium, for the first time in my life, I've got money to like invest after not having too much throughout university.
Sure.
And so it started getting into Bitcoin in kind of early 2020, which was right when...
Before the boom.
Sort of like...
The second boom.
Yeah, the second boom. Yeah, the original one was like 2017.
2017, it went up to like...
Which was a good learning experience, actually. I was involved to a very small extent back then, just playing around at uni.
Yeah, and then you had a bit more disposable income.
Yeah, a bit more disposable income the second time.
2020 was just like the year of the lottery for everybody who invested.
But then to get into like why Flowverse, it was in October of 2020. We're all in lockdown.
Yeah.
We don't have too much... we don't really have anything better to do.
So were you working from home?
Working from home, yes.
Yeah. So that was still with Quantium?
Still with Quantium, and I found a Twitter post that was talking about an application called NBA Top Shot. And NBA Top Shot, for anyone who doesn't know, is a website where you can trade, buy and sell video clips of NBA highlights, which are NFTs. And at the time, there was no reference to NFTs at all on the website. It was just sort of like digital collectibles. And I thought, wow, that's like amazing. If cryptocurrency is ever going to go to the mainstream, the millions and billions of users, you're going to need to abstract it away so that people aren't talking about it as NFTs and crypto. This was my thinking at the time. Maybe it's changed since then.
I mean, it still holds validity, you know what I mean? So that's good.
I sort of loved that about NBA Top Shot. I was looking into the blockchain that it was built on. I was thinking it would be Ethereum because...
it's the canonical...
a lot of apps built on Ethereum, but it was built on Flow, which was a brand new one. So after that, I went fully down the Flow rabbit hole. So
there's a bit of a backstory behind Flow and the technology of the people who established it, right? Because it was created because the Ethereum network was getting bombarded with too many transactions, right? And then gas fees, which is basically the transactional fee that it costs to transfer things between users, was too expensive, right? So they created Flow to then reduce the cost. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the founders of CryptoKitties, which is one of the most popular games on Ethereum.
So just for the audience, like CryptoKitties, what is it?
CryptoKitties, it's a game.
It sounds so perverse, right? Because you're like, with CryptoKitties? You're like, CryptoKitties in general, just because you're like, all right, so my company is founded off of NFTs and we focus on building a community around that. This is what I'm saying, like for you. And then you're like, pretty much like Flowverse of Flow as a blockchain and technology that's established there was founded because of
cats on it. Yeah. Well, actually, if you look back to the early days of the internet, I think it was all cats as well. So it's just some sort of like weird internet phenomena where people love cats.
I guess like cats are intriguing. They're cute. People like to exchange images and things like that. Before we go into the establishment of Flow as a technology and things like that. NFTs, right?
NFTs,
it stands for non-fungible token, right? Which is essentially means unique. Right, something that's unique, essentially, right?
Like a one of one. Token
exactly. One of one token that it's not just a JPEG, right? That's the argument.
So crucially, it's not a JPEG because it's a record in a decentralized database, a blockchain that basically just says this person owns that, and what they own doesn't even need to be on a blockchain. So it could be a JPEG, or it could be a property in the real world. And the NFT is just that record that says this person owns that.
Yeah, sure. So it's proof of ownership.
Yeah, it's a way of authenticating or verifying something.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess that's why there's so many, companies these days, they're utilizing the whole tech that surrounds the industry of NFTs to, hold ownership in a proper way that's traceable for things that are actually tangible in the real world, like houses, cars, etc. Right? So I mean, I don't know if you follow like Logan Paul or anything like that. Not to get into too much detail.
Logan Paul versus KSI back in the day.
The whole like thing that he's doing right now, he's created a platform. I think it's called like Liquid Market or something. Essentially, all it is it's an NFT platform that uses the NFT, blockchain network essentially, or a NFT blockchain network, to create ownership over collectibles in the real world. So like collectible cards and Pokemon cards and things like that, right? So he just co-founded this company. He probably has nothing to do with the development, but at the same time, he himself, because he has an immense collection of like real tangible cards and Pokemon cards and things like that. Yeah. He recently purchased the most expensive Pokemon card in the world. It's a 1-for-1 10. It's ranked as a 10 PSA. It's some trainer Pikachu card, right? Yeah. I think it was $5 million.
$5 million.
Right. So that in itself as a collectible is insane. I think it was the largest transaction that ever occurred. Yeah. And it was sold by some like anonymous guy in Dubai, which is kind of scary. But what he's done now, because he's co-founded this NFT platform, is he's then used NFT as technology to have like an open source investing platform where you can have part ownership in this card. Right. And it's linked with the actual card in real life. Right. So you're almost buying shares in something that actually exists, and that ownership is traced using NFTs.
Yeah, using NFTs.
Yeah. So it's insane where the industry's going. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a really good use case of NFTs, I think. Absolutely. Like you're packaging up a physical good, basically. You're creating a token that represents the physical good. Yeah. They can probably store, a company could store all of these in like a vault, and then you just trade the NFT.
Absolutely.
And then eventually when someone wants to get the physical card, they just redeem the NFT. They log into a platform with their NFT and get it shipped out.
It's a crazy world.
Yeah.
It's a crazy world.
Yeah.
Because
it's very
like
cool.
I personally like, there is that debate of, what is the value of an NFT, because it just looks like a, digital piece of art. Right. Yeah. And that's really like what it was created for, but it's that ownership, right? And the fact that they're now able to use it to link it to things that actually exist in reality, that's the proof of concept to me that will drive the NFT industry to where it needs to be.
Yeah, for sure. So on that, I think the NFT as itself, and this is pretty much word for word from a guy I follow called Chris Dixon.
I thought you were going to say Gary Vee.
Oh, Gary, no, I also follow Gary Vee. But he basically says, and I agree with this, that NFT is a new form of digital primitive. So like how you had websites in the 90s and you had iPhone apps in the 2000s, 2010s, and you had social media emerge 2000 to 2010s as well. It's just a new form of digital primitive. And so there are countless applications. And so one of them, like a great one, would be matching it to physical. But another one is just like online value. So even being able to own a JPEG, like I know it's a bit of a joke, but it's actually trivial, very cool. Right? It's something that you couldn't do up until this technology came out.
Absolutely. I think another thing on this topic of just NFTs in general is like Gary Vee. You said you followed him. I also follow him. I like some of the stuff he says. Some of the other stuff is a bit, I guess, like trivial or I guess perverse.
He's a controversial guy.
Love or hate, right?
Yeah, love or hate.
And the people who hate him don't understand him. That's all it is, right? But at the end of the day, he was talking about like what is, I guess like what is an NFT, right? It's basically just like that whole sense of ownership, right? But what is anything? And why, like how do humans communicate, right? And what he says is like humans communicate by what they own.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And that's a massive thing. That's a massive thing that's underestimated with the whole sense of the utility NFTs have for ownership of things, right?
Yeah, actually,
like what I'm wearing right now, right? Like I'm wearing a watch, like I'm wearing a jacket, for example, and it's like, why am I wearing this stuff? You know what I mean? I'm wearing it because it shows society. I'm communicating without actually speaking who I am and what I believe, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this is why I think like you can't just dismiss NFTs as being like attached to physical items and that's the only utility for them, because they also have utility as social proof. Yeah. And like the early kind of MVP of that is you can buy a Bored Ape now for like $100,000. And it's sort of like the internet version of owning a Lamborghini, as you can set it as your Twitter profile. The internet version of owning like a really nice Rolex or something like that.
Yeah, and it's like, and there's it's like, oh, you can just take a photo of it. And it's like, but it's not the same.
Yeah, you can get
it's
a fake Rolex.
Yeah. Like, it's not the same.
Yeah, exactly. Or like a fake Supreme shirt, even. Like, it can almost be identical to the actual Supreme shirt, but it's not the same. You'd feel not, like you wouldn't feel good wearing it.
Yeah, like a Supreme t-shirt costs like $2 to make. but then they sell it for 150 or whatever dollars, right? And
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
It's not because of the quality necessarily.
It's because of the brand and the
sense,
authenticity of it.
What it means about you as a person and what you represent when you wear something like that.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
I mean? And NFTs allow people to do that in a new, novel way.
Yeah, in a digital way. And I think one like super interesting use case of NFTs is probably not too hard to see down the line. People being able to display all the digital items they have or what they care about on social media profiles. So say you donated to a charity or you won a marathon, like you would then get an NFT medal to signify you won the marathon or an NFT kind of like receipt proving that you donated to the charity. It'd display then on your social media profile and people would instantly be able to see kind of like what you care about because these are things that you've bought. And it could go even further than like social media. It could also be kind of on like Tinder, dating apps, right?
Tinder,
like, you can see what people care about.
Absolutely. I think another good utility in general is like NFTs being used as tickets, right? Like you're going to go to a concert. One day you're owning a physical copy of a piece of paper of a ticket. Next day you're owning an NFT because you can't counterfeit it, right? There's only one. So if there's a way to properly verify it and it's traceable to the single owner, then that will stop a lot of fraud going around. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, exactly. No, that's an excellent point. I think tickets for NFTs is like huge. Gary Vee,
Gary
always
Vee,
talks about
proof of concept.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like everybody's like, oh, what? Yeah, but he's rich and he invested all this money into running this successful thing. And he's like, yeah, but he could have done that. Like anybody could have done that. But the reason he did it was because he wanted to show the utility of having the NFT as the ticket of entry, right? So you own the digital piece of art. It not only shows society or the community that this is what represents you, you know what I mean? Like it's a simple image, right? But it's like wearing a Supreme shirt. Why do you do it? Because you want other people to know that that's what you represent, right? But then also having the capacity to attend a unique event because you have ownership in that community.
Yeah,
that's a massive thing.
Access NFTs, you own an NFT, you can access a community, almost like a membership card.
Yeah.
And then on the example of tickets, I think another great example of kind of NFTs and ticketing is once you've gone to the match, and sure it's unique and it solves fraud and everything beforehand, but once you've gone to the match, it could then like change the metadata of the NFT to be a commemorative NFT that's like you've attended this match. And so say your like favorite football player scores a hat trick. Maybe you leave that match with an NFT of your favorite football player scoring a hat trick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so you can then display it in on your social media profile, a gallery, or even just store it in your wallet as like a very good memento, digital souvenir of attending it.
Yeah, that's great. So I guess just like going back to your company.
Yes.
Right? Like because we're just talking about like NFTs, the utility, how they create a community or they are the community, right? How does Flowverse act as that conduit to build that community around NFTs on the Flow blockchain? Right.
Yeah, for sure. So Flow blockchain is one of the major layer 1 blockchains at the moment. It's the top blockchain by NFT transactions, even ahead of Ethereum and Solana. Purely, a majority of that volume comes from NBA Top Shot, which was highly successful. And it's the number 4 blockchain, I think, according to total sales volume to date for NFTs. All that data is from Crypto Slam.
Sure.
And so Flow blockchain is a layer 1 blockchain that people can build cryptocurrencies on top of. They can build NFTs on top of. They can build other tokens like and DAOs on top of. It's sort of like the underlying platform, the underlying operating system. And then what Flowverse is, which is my company and my co-founder Nish's company, is it's a place where you can discover apps built on Flow blockchain. So if you want to discover an NFT on Flow, you'd come to the Flowverse. Or if you want to discover a token on Flowverse or a DAO, a cryptocurrency on Flow, you could come to Flowverse to discover them. And why would you want to discover them? Like in the case of NFTs, maybe you want to collect it, maybe you want to trade it.
Yeah, sure. Can you trade on the platform?
So you can't trade on the Flowverse platform at this point. We aggregate other platforms where you can trade together. And so there's a button where you can just click to go through and trade the NFTs on the other marketplace. Yeah,
that sounds really cool. Now, just I guess touching on some of the more I guess other areas that a lot of people don't like speaking about, right? Let's just say, for example, that I use Flowverse to look at a new NFT project that I'm interested in purchasing, right? And you've linked me up with the platform to purchase the NFT on.
Yeah, sure.
Now, something that I've personally experienced in the NFT space is like, of course, like I want to own many NFTs, right? But I can't get my bloody hands on them because I go to purchase it at the time of arrival and people are using bots, people are, like they're almost cheating the system, gaining access to these, because there's only so many of them.
For the initial sale of
NFTs,
like
the initial sale of an NFT.
It's difficult to get the
release,
initial
right?
sale.
Yeah. So obviously for any investor, it's like investing in an IPO, initial public offering. It's like the first person to own the NFT will get the best value, right? Yeah. And then they sell it for a profit, right? So for someone like me who's a university student trying to earn a little bit more money, right? It makes sense for me to get the latest and NFTs for the price of release and then to make a profit.
Yeah, I think that's sort of an interesting one. Like I'd say majority of the NFTs listed on or probably almost all of the NFTs on Flow are more collector's items instead of investments. And so, but you're right. Like I guess you could, maybe a way to compare it would be like you're buying, I guess, the IPO sort of works, or like an ICO in the case of a token, or the initial sale of NFTs, or even like t-shirts, like the initial brand selling of t-shirts or sneakers, and then you can resell them on a secondary marketplace. And what we find, I think, is on other blockchains like Ethereum, where there's a lot of demand, bots can try and game the system and get all the initial allocation, and it's very difficult for someone to come in and get the NFTs at the first point of sale. On Flow, I think the bots are less sophisticated at the moment, so we haven't necessarily had problems like that. But we do have an upcoming drops calendar where you can see all the upcoming NFT sales happening on Flow. And on top of that, we have aggregation of all the existing collections by metrics like number of holders, number of sales in the initial sale, number of secondary sales, like the transaction volume, and other metrics.
Yeah, that's really good. So another question that I had was, this is a bit more of a naive question, but because NFTs themselves are, associated with, I guess, blockchain technology and things like that, and you're purchasing them with like actual currency as such, like is there a Flow coin or something like that?
Yes. So so there is a Flow token. Dollar Flow, which is used to secure the Flow blockchain network.
Is it volatile?
Yes, it is volatile.
Yeah. So this is where my question comes in, right? So in terms of volatility, right? Like if the price of the token itself is rising, right? Naturally the product itself will increase as well, right? Like the price of the NFT will increase relative.
Yes.
Is that correct?
So this is interesting. Some NFTs you find sort of like have a stable US dollar value. And so if the price of the token increases, the price in the token's value will decrease because the US dollar value is stable. And the same happens the other way around. But others, you're right. Like their price will increase as the price of the token increases.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's very interesting.
So it's like happy days if it increases, but damn, if it decreases and you've just purchased something that you thought would be worth a lot, does that decrease the value of the NFT because of the volatility in the market?
So it definitely can, but again, like it sort of depends NFT to NFT. So recent crypto bear market, what we've seen is that some collections on Flow, for example, even the Flowverse socks have held their value quite steadily in this market, whereas other collections have heavily decreased in value because people haven't kind of adjusted for the Flow price going down. Which is, it's an interesting phenomenon because they're priced in a different, because Flow is almost like a new currency basically, and you've got a new economy, which is the Flow blockchain economy, as if like you've got a country with its own currency. Sure. So it's very interesting dynamics there.
That's really cool. I guess another skepticism that's going around the industry right now is just like how oversaturated the market is, right? So, wherever there's money, there's room to take advantage of people, which is very unfortunate. A lot of rug pulls that ruin, rug pulls are like scams essentially, where they have a bunch of people hype up something, a lot of people invest, and then they pull the rug and the coin or the NFT or whatever they're purchasing drops to zero and everybody gets burnt. Now, in cases like that, because there's a lot of saturation, there's a lot of competition as well, right? So I guess there's two dynamics here. There's the consumer itself, right? So because the market is saturated, knowing what to purchase, right? That's one question. Second part is as a creator, right? So NFTs can be used to, I guess, create ownership of a piece of art digitally, right? Yeah. So for the creator themselves, how to, I guess, utilize the latest technologies to, make sure that you're not just, supplying another piece of digital art that's going to get, I guess, lost amongst the other millions of projects.
Making sure you're not like just making a quick buck off your followers, basically. Yeah. Well, I guess to answer the first point, which is like, how do you know what NFTs to buy? I definitely look at them as more of a collector's item. Yep. And so a lot of the NFTs that I've bought have been to support my friends in the industry. So for example, they'll launch their first ever NFT and I'll be like, you know what, I like back that person. I think they're pretty cool. I think I either like them or I think they're super smart and that they'll be able to kind of deliver value that way. And so that's kind of why I buy NFTs, is just personal interest. Sometimes I like the artwork of the NFT, and so I'll get an NFT because I like the art to support creators. They're the two kind of primary ways I look at NFTs. I think it's important to call out now that probably, as Gary Vee says, like 99% of NFTs will kind of go to zero, over time. Nothing, and I think that's just like what happens when a new technology comes along. Like if you look at apps back in App Store in 2008, probably 99% of them don't exist anymore.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And
I
same
mean, like
with websites,
if you said to someone like name 10 apps, like I can guarantee you that like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, which are pretty much all owned by the same person. Like they're all going to get listed as the dominating apps. It's because there are always dominance in these markets. Yeah, and that tends to be what happens over time, is things get consolidated in any sort of like technology amongst like a dominant few players. Absolutely.
Google for search, Facebook for social media. And then to answer the second question, the second part of your question, which was more on the creator side, like how do you not like accidentally kind of like rug pull your community, basically, right? I think the way to do it is to really like think long term about NFTs, because everything is immutable. So if you put something out there, it's not going away, and people will remember if you just overpriced something that you didn't really care about and you sold it. I think you really have to be cautious about it, and you have to think long term about like how your NFTs will kind of like how you won't forget about them, or maybe you do sell them as art and that's that's good. I mean, this has been a great conversation, like before we tick off, because it's been about 40 minutes already. I was wondering, like from a running your own business standpoint, right? Like because you didn't canonically come from somewhere in a business management background, but more so a finance background. Like how did you go about, like, do you have staff at the moment? Yes. So
or is it just you and your co-founder?
So there is myself, my co-founder, who's part-time, as well as we have 2 casual employees and 1 contractor at the moment.
That's good. So I'm just curious in terms of your development team, right? So like the people actually behind the scenes of the platform that you've created. How did you go about, like, because you yourself, you've had a little bit of experience in, the computer science.
Well, I hacked together the platform that we use. So there's no dev team at the moment as such.
So is it all low code tech and all that?
So it's using low code tech, which I definitely recommend to people.
Good way to bootstrap your way.
Yeah, it's a fantastic way to bootstrap. And that would be like a big piece of advice, would be to basically not invest a lot in building a huge platform, unless you like have to and you're in like a healthcare industry or something where it's like imperative you get that stuff right. Do like hacky stuff and just see how far it can get you, because like if you can build enough traction off of like a pretty low code tool, or like something you've scrapped together in MVP before you need to upgrade.
Absolutely. That's good. And lastly, running any startup can have its costs associated with it, right? So you yourself are lucky enough to have graduated and then realized that this is something that you wanted to pursue, right? So we'll finish with this last question. What advice, now feel free to answer it any way you want, but what advice would you give to the community of those looking at, running their own startup, how to, I guess, finance their way to success?
How to finance their way to
so
success.
how to afford, or get to a point where you're not putting too much money in, for example, just get themselves to a stable point without investing too much funds.
Yeah, for sure. So in our case, it was started as like a side hustle, right, outside of work. And so I think that's a great way to go about it. Just kind of like experiment with something on the side of your job.
So use your other income to finance.
Well, in my case, fortunately, it wasn't a very capital intensive startup to build. So like, because I guess I could build the technology with low code, and that kind of stuff. It wasn't super capital intensive. And I think that's the case with a lot of like media businesses.
Absolutely.
And like even a podcast, like it's quite low capital intensive, and you can sort of like start it alongside your like actual full time employment.
Nice. So what's the big plan?
The big plan.
For Flowverse. Like, what's the end goal?
What's the end goal? I think like obviously the overall vision is to help people discover flow blockchain products.
Yep.
And we also want to help bring in the next 10 to 100 million people into blockchain and NFT technology.
Yeah. So continue building the community.
Continue releasing products that will help people discover these applications.
Sure. So are you yourself going to develop a series of NFTs?
Are we ourselves going to do? We have already released NFTs. We released 111 Flowverse socks as a Christmas present to our early community. Sure. So we gave them away for free. I actually am super bullish on just like free NFTs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a great way to reward community members as part of like a loyalty program.
Absolutely.
And so we gave away 111 free sock NFTs to early community members. And so that is our initial.
That's good then. Yeah, there you go. Maybe as a collectible for long-term holders, and then maybe even one day a ticket for something that you run. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I think like definitely we'll be looking at more opportunities to explore NFTs. Very good.
All right. Well, I think it's been enough time. I appreciate you coming out here. That's been James. It's Petchey, right? Yeah. James Petchey from Flowverse. If you want to follow him, link will be in the description. We'll make sure to also plug all your socials as well. I'm Oliver, and this has been the Student Founder Podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. That was the latest episode of the Student Founder Podcast, a platform created for people to share their experiences in the startup world. I'm your host, Oliver Kukanik. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this episode, make sure to like and subscribe. All links will be in the description. And also, thanks to our guest, James, for coming on and talking about NFTs. Hopefully you have a better understanding about the NFT world at this point. If you want to learn more about how we at Rofi Labs can help you bring your NFTs and software startups to life, feel free to check out our website at www.rofilabs.com.au or hit me up directly on LinkedIn at Oliver Kukanik, link in the description. Thanks so much. Stay grindy.